Dr. Abiola Ajayi is a medical practitioner and the MD CEO of ROA Specialist Hospital. He holds a bachelor's in science and medicine from the US and a master's in the US, master's degree in engineering. Wow. And he's here today to talk to us about hypertension and why it's extremely important to check our blood pressure even if we feel perfectly okay. So, Doc, it's good to have you join us this morning.
Thank you very much.
I want to start from a short story
Okay.
that happened, I think, early last year.
Okay.
So I have this friend who, we do a lot of work together. And he looks fit, looks perfect, no problem. And then one day, he said his arm was hurting. And he just continued, like, over the next few days. So this was Monday. And then by Thursday, I told him, why don't you go to the hospital and have this checked out? Because, initially I told him maybe you slept on it and,
His left
so he
arm?
eventually, yeah, his left arm. So eventually, right from where we were, we went to the hospital together. And it was just, I was like, look, let's just go to the hospital and check this out. And his blood pressure had skyrocketed and he wasn't aware because he hadn't been to the hospital in a while and he felt perfectly fine. Why do we have lots of people in that situation today who they might have high blood pressure but not be aware of what's going on?
This is why sometimes you'll hear high blood pressure, hypertension is called a silent killer. It's because until you feel something or hear something, it'll silently be there. Your blood pressure, let's say an average normal blood pressure is 120, the top number, 80, the bottom number. Until it gets very high, before you'll now start feeling some physical symptoms. That's how I knew it was the left arm and not the right arm. Usually when you have some chest pain or high blood pressure, be on the left side.
Why is it usually on the left side?
That's based on the way the nerves and your anatomy are based, the ones that are around your heart. It's usually the left side, up the left neck, and then central chest pain.
Wow.
But by the time it gets to that point, your BP is quite high. And you also have the risk of sudden death by then, either heart attack or stroke. So it's just so silent. When the BP starts rising, you will not feel any different feelings at all. So
but I think a lot of times people also say that, look, I don't want to go to the hospital because I don't want them to discover something that, something really bad. So people generally avoid hospitals, especially in Nigeria, and for different reasons. So first is, I don't want them to discover something really bad. And then for others, they just think it's too expensive. So what steps do I take, in order to ensure that, I'm checking my blood pressure regularly and, something bad doesn't happen?
I get that every day in my practice. So what I do, for us, checking blood pressure is free. If you just want to walk in and check your BP, completely free. Even at that, I still have to beg people. Somebody will bring someone else to the hospital, say, hey, before you go, check your blood pressure. And a lot of them say, no, don't find anything that's not there. There are misconceptions. This kind of programs, these kind of things where we have to educate people that it's not so. It's not because we checked it that gave you high blood pressure. The high blood pressure was there. And the faster you do something about it, the better for you. Each day your blood pressure is high, you're damaging your organs. You're damaging your eyes, you're damaging your heart, you're damaging your kidneys, you're damaging your brain. So eventually all that cumulative damage will show up and sometimes it'll be too late.
Yeah. So, but one of the things how do we then ensure that apart from, just dragging people to go and, check their blood pressure, this becomes like a lifestyle? Like, how often should I check my blood pressure? How do I also advise people, to check their blood pressure as well?
You should check your blood pressure at least once a year, okay? And what I tell people is treat yourself on your birthday. Every time you have a birthday, go and see your doctor, get your blood pressure checked, get your blood sugar checked, get your cholesterol checked. If you can remember that, let that be a birthday present to yourself. You'll have many more birthdays to celebrate. But we really have to, everybody has to get involved. Private citizens, private hospitals, public hospitals, everybody has to get involved in just spreading the word that it's okay and necessary to do these checks.
Now, let's talk about people who have discovered that maybe there's an uptick in their blood pressure and it's not so bad, but then they've discovered that it's going higher. So what lifestyle changes do I then need to make to ensure that, okay, I'm maintaining a healthy lifestyle and also maintaining a healthy blood pressure as well?
If I get a new patient that I get high, a higher reading, if I can get ascertain that I can get them back, I'll give them another chance. Because a lot of people say, oh, I didn't sleep, or so I like to get 2 readings, as long as the initial one is not too high. I like to get 2 readings on separate days. If those 2 readings are high, then I'll now diagnose them as having high blood pressure. And then,
so you require 2 readings?
Yes, I like to have 2 readings. But if it's so high, let's say if I see somebody 200 over 110, then I know that one is not really from sleep. That's something that we need to deal with. You know, I mentioned lifestyle changes. Diet is the number one. Adding salt, and salt doesn't come. I'm looking over at a kitchen here. Salt doesn't come in just the form of white table salt. It comes in the form of these little cubes that we add for flavor. They have a lot of salt. Then processed foods. The reason why they're processed and they can last so long on the shelf is because they're high in salt and different preservatives. So having a healthy diet, high in organic foods, low in processed foods, low in animal proteins and higher in plant proteins, that alone can reduce your chances of developing high blood pressure. That's the number one. But there are some other ones too.
Yeah, let's talk about a few of them. I mean, I know people talk about exercise. Is that one of the things that people should also do as well?
So sitting is the new smoking, meaning that leading a sedentary lifestyle is as bad, because now it's not really so cool to smoke cigarettes. And so that one is kind of getting phased out. So now the new one that's really dangerous is sitting. You sit all day. Your heart rate never goes up. You don't exercise during the day or on the weekends. That is a huge risk. A sedentary lifestyle can increase your risk of having heart disease by 2 times. So 2 times more likely to have heart disease, sedentary lifestyle. So you try and get 30 minutes. If you get 30 minutes 3 times a week, you've just reduced your chances by almost 100%.
Oh, wow. So I know that stress is also something that contributes a lot to high blood pressure. I mean, if you live in a city like Lagos, you're in traffic. I mean, you get up really early in the morning, you're in traffic for 2-3 hours, trying to get to work and back. And all of that. How do you manage stress, even if it's mentally? Because you still have to do the work. You still have to ensure that and things you get things going in your family and stuff like that. So how do you manage that?
Little story about myself. I've been in Nigeria now 5 years, back from the States. When I came, my blood pressure was normal. I now have high blood pressure.
Oh, wow.
So
after just 5 years?
After just 5 years.
Do you want to go back?
No, I'm still here. I made a decision to stay in Nigeria to try and see if we can improve things. But I take my medication regularly. And managing stress, I now had to come up with creative ways to manage stress. So one of them is meditation. I don't play with my meditation. I wake up in the morning and I meditate. Meditation is different than prayer. I pray, then I also meditate. By the time you can do some meditation, you can massage your temples. You can even take your feet and soak them in warm water. Reducing physical stress reduces the hormones that lead to high blood pressure and damage to your blood vessels.
Wow.
There's a stress hormone that releases, when you're in the traffic and, somebody cuts you off, there's a hormone that gets released, and that hormone damages your blood vessels, increases your blood pressure, and so the more you can have less of that, the better off you are.
Wow, okay. So, I mean, you talked about medication, which is, one of the things that people also use to manage high blood pressure, especially when they have been diagnosed with it.
Yeah.
So, we're not going to go into details for that, but are medications usually used by all people who have high blood pressure, or they can just manage it?
Yeah, so if I get somebody, hypertension now is divided into mild and severe. So if I can get somebody that's mildly hypertensive and get them to do some diet and lifestyle changes, there's a chance they can become normal, to have normal blood pressure. So they may not require medication. But there's some people that you look at their lifestyle, you have a deep interview with them, and there's not really much that can change. They still have to drive from Ogun State to the island to work.
Yeah.
They still have to do so many different things that are stressful. So those people, you have to put them on medication.
Wow.
And you take the drugs. You use the medication. The side effects are nothing compared to the side effects of having uncontrolled high blood pressure.
Yeah, because there are some people who say that it makes them sleep, it makes them a bit lethargic through the day and stuff like that, but they still have to take it, right?
Yeah, well, there's so many different types of BP drugs. So that's why you get with a competent doctor, and he'll now manage your side effects. So if you say it makes you sleepy, we'll switch you to another one. That's why there's so many different classes, and so many different types. By the time you switch and play around with different combinations, you can find one that's suitable for you. And it's normal to control blood pressure now with more than one medication. So if you see the doctor wants to put you on 2 and things like that, it's an okay thing.
All right. Thank you so much, Doc, for joining us this morning.
It's my
Hopefully,
pleasure.
You can take all our blood pressure after the
Yes,
show
it's
and just
my
ensure
pleasure.
that we're healthy.
Thank you
Thank
very
you so
much.
much for joining us.